All right. Welcome into another episode of Hockey Royalty Live, the official podcast of HockeyRoyalty.com. Here we got the draft preview going on. We're going to be talking, hey, should we keep this pick or should we trade it away? We got first round selections. We got some gems. We're going to be debating all night long. Get in the chat, like and subscribe. Here we go. All right, everybody. Hey, Russell and Joe, what's going on? Welcome back into the chat, my friends.
What's going on?
I don't think anybody's as fired up as you, though, right now, Randon.
Dude, I am fired up. Draft season is my season, you know, and
it is.
And my brothers always tease me because I'm like, oh, hey, that guy Mitchkov out of Russia in the 2023 draft. I was talking about it like 4 years ago. Like he's 14, like he's just going through puberty. But watch out, like I'm that kind of guy sometimes. And my brothers are just like, dude, shut the F up. Like we don't really care. Like let's just let them pick, and we'll discuss all the players after it happens. You know.
Well, and can I say, like because you turned me on to the one article that, so for those that don't know, Randon spends 99% of his time here at Hockey Royalty on hosting the podcast. Well, he did write one article though about David Jiricek, the Chechnya right shot D-man, and he was dealing with an injury at the time, and he may slip. Obviously, he's kind of recovered, so he's now comfortably in that top 10, maybe even top 5 range, but. For those that don't know, Randon is a big draft guy, so credit to you because you turned me on to Jiricek early, and you got my hopes up a little bit. But now, obviously, there's no way he's gonna slip that far. But for anybody that wasn't sure, go check that out. Jiricek is going to be a fun prospect to watch too in the top 10 of the draft. So,
yeah, and even if we got the holistic shot, the piss missile that is that one timer of David Jiricek, there would be Twitter fans like, oh, we don't need another right shot D. This guy is electric, and whoever drafts him is going to be great. Russell, how are you doing? You're wearing the Chargers hat tonight, switching it up from the Dodgers. You upset about the conflict between the Braves and the Dodgers this week, and that's why you're going football or what?
The whole Freddie Freeman thing?
Yeah.
What is going on with that?
Yeah, I don't know. It just seems like media just trying to make a story out of something. Because what Clayton Kershaw said about how he hopes the Dodgers aren't second fiddle to them. But, yeah, I don't know. I'm excited for – I mean, the NFL just released their training camp dates, and it's like coming at the end of July. So – I'm trying to get hyped for football. I mean, fantasy football, I love it. So let's go. Football's probably my second.
You know what we should do? You just got the idea. Maybe we should do a Hockey Royalty Fantasy Football League with the listeners.
Oh, it's not a bad gig.
Maybe we'll start that up. Everybody, keep an eye out for that. So Richard's already in here as always. Thank you, the loyal listener. This draft will be fire. I think so as well. I think this could be some very good stuff because. You know, it's always been the last couple drafts, right? Who will they take at 5? There's only a couple guys there. Who will they take at 2? Byfield or Stützle. Now there's a wide range of guys. There's a lot of guys coming in. And then there's also the debate of whether or not they'll even make the pick. And that starts with our first topic here. First round, make the pick or trade it away. So we are in an ebb and flow of this rebuild, right? There's people who say that we need to go all in right now. Make a Carter and Richards type move. There's people say, hey, we outplayed our stock last season. Let's just keep going with the flow. So there's that both mindset. Where do you guys fall in? And what do you think they should ultimately do? If you were Rob Blake, if you were putting on his cap, where do you think they should go and go in depth? I'm going to start with Russell on this one.
Yeah, it's interesting. This draft, we've heard a lot of noise about next year's draft. And next year's draft is going to be full of talent. So in terms of holding on to first-round picks, I think you're going to be seeing a lot of teams doing that, and as opposed to try to trade them away for more established talent. So for this draft, I think it's more of a possibility that we see Blake possibly doing that because you look at the players around where the Kings are drafting at 19. There's not really that home run type name, I guess you could say, or that real, I guess, franchise player that you're going to find at 19. Who knows? You could find a top end prospect that develops into something that no one's seen yet. But for what the Kings need, and you look at their prospect system, it's already fully loaded. They got all the prospects already in the NHL making a little bit of an impact, as well as Ontario Reign and then some that are coming. So the Kings are fully loaded. You try to bring in some more, and yeah, that could help down the road, but to be picking at 19 for the Kings that are looking to upgrade now, I think it's a real possibility that Rob Blake could possibly trade the pick, and I think it would be a good idea depending on the player that they get.
Grab some stones, man. Like, are they going to trade it or not? And where would you go with it? If you're trading it, where are you going with this 19?
If I'm trading it, it's for Jacob Chikrin. The thing is like I gotta see the player that the Kings would be getting back. Of course, like it's all hypothetical and all that, but Jacob Chikrin, I've talked about this on end. I mean, it's the player that the Kings need right now. And you just look at the salary cap situation. You look at the left shot, the shot he's got on the power play, the power play quarterback ability. I mean, he fills the most pressing need that the Kings have right now. So in order to get that player in, you're going to have to give something away. And who knows, maybe you give the Coyotes the first rounder this year. They might even ask for next year because, like I said, it's going to be full of talent. But maybe you can kind of see if they're able to take this year's draft, because with what the Kings have right now, adding another prospect around the mid-teens is great, but you're already fully loaded right there.
You know what's a cool thing about this draft and where we're at with the Arizona deal is, if you haven't seen the last week's show with Locked On Coyotes, go back, listen to it. But they're completely empty. So even if we draft somebody at 19, we have plenty of prospects to still entice that deal. Richards come in here. If they don't keep the pick, will they draft for positional need, lefty or goalie? Goalie, there's no first round or even second round goalies in this draft. So we're not going goalie. Lefty might be a possibility for one of us three here in our top 3 picks. So keep tuned and find out. Joe, what are you doing with this pick here at 19?
I go back to the beginning of last year when Rob Blake said that their goal was to make the playoffs. And I thought that was a little bit lofty because personally, I would have preferred them to really have one more year of let's really lean in on development. Let's see what these young kids got. Let's see what Kaliev, Byfield, Kapari, and really just load them with ice time and see what they can do. So, and Velarde, same thing. And they went and tried to make the playoffs, and credit to them that they did. So that being said, now's the time to strike. I trade this pick. I agree with the rest that I trade it for Jacob Chikrin. That is the biggest hole for me, is lefty 2. I know there's some exciting forward, and I'm not going to lose sleep or be upset if they make a deal for
Pasta. God.
Yeah. Well, with Bergeron back, I don't think he's going anywhere. But if they made a deal for Pasta or for Forsberg, for DeBrincat, listen, I ain't going to be upset about that. But I think the biggest need is still lefty 2. So I trade it. I go back and forth on what I expect the Kings to do. But I think, listen, if last year was, we need to push to make the playoffs, they did that. They went to Game 7 against Edmonton. I talked about this last summer, Brandon. I think you and I did a lot. Kopitar and Doughty, they're only a few years left. And if you want to try one more kick at the can with these two, you better make this move now or within the very near future. That's my opinion, because they only have a few years left at playing at high levels. So go get this guy now, trade the pick this year.
So what I'm thinking here is that and when we like drama a little bit, but we're not soap opera stars here at the Hockey Royalty. But a guy that will not be named flat out asked Alex Turcotte if he's staying. He bleached his social media. That kind of stuff, like super NFL style. And he said, no, I'm not leaving. But Alex Turcotte was in our trade mock to the Coyotes. Joe, you got some flack on that on the YouTube, saying that you came too easy with the Alex Turcotte right out of the gate. Do you feel like fans hold the prospects too close, and that they have to be realistic if we want a real star to come over if they're trading this pick away?
So I will say this, admittedly, there are times where maybe I am a little over aggressive. I know I caught a little bit too for including Brandt Clark in the Pasternak potential trade. And maybe I'm overcompensating because I think as fans, we just assume we know our prospects a lot better than other teams know our prospects. So we tend to like them a little bit better. And, Arizona's not going to take, and no disrespect to these guys, Arizona's not going to take a first Tyler Madden and Sam Fagimo. Like you have to bring it. If you're going to try to get a guy like Jacob Chikrin, who's a top forward defenseman, to play on your second pair on the left D, who's signed for what he is for as long as he is, you got to bring it. You can't just come with, and that's why I'm aggressive right off the hop is go get the player, go get it done. and just make it happen. And if it costs you Alex Turcotte, it costs you Alex Turcotte, and you put your trust in your scouting and development and your trading to you have the tools, or excuse me, the other pieces that you can. That's the point of building up this prospect pool the way they have is you. And I hate to say that. I mean, obviously they're humans, but from a team construct standpoint, they're assets. You either play them and develop them and play them on the Kings, or you develop them to trade them. They're valuable assets, however way you want to look at that, and that's part of it. They're not all going to play for the Kings, and if Turcotte is one that ends up getting traded, then so be it. If it brings in Chychrun again, because the Kings. They're operating as to playoffs is now. The rebuild is I don't want to say over, but like this is a step now. If they were talking playoffs last year and they did it, the idea is next step. So you better be doing something to take that next step.
And that's kind of why I go back to last season or the last off season where that push to get to the playoffs. And I was kind of with you where I was kind of on the fence where whether it should have been focused more on development or actually trying to get that goal of making the playoffs. But now that they actually made the playoffs, there's expectations now. And it's like it'll be a little bit harder for fans to take in, like you make the playoffs and then next year you don't make the playoffs. That would seem like almost like a downturn a little bit, which it wouldn't be, especially for a young team that surprised everybody just even getting to the playoffs this past season. But the fact that they did make the playoffs is why that there's a lot of people are a lot more aggressive in terms of looking to trade this first round pick.
I think
me included.
Where I'm going with that is I think it's if they do nothing and miss the playoffs, then you scratch your head. Now I don't think they're going to do nothing. Now it's just a matter of how big of a move they make. Maybe it's a depth move or whatever. But if you don't make an impact, quote unquote, splash, however you want to describe it, move, and you miss the playoffs, then I think it's a fair question to Rob Blake. If they make the move, Chychrun, insert player here, whatever you want to say, and they miss the playoffs, listen, we talked about this. The division is getting stronger. I know it's considered a very weak division, but Calgary's still a good team. I know they're going to have some changes. You guys know how high I am on Vegas still. Edmonton.
Yeah, move there, buddy.
Edmonton's not going away, so it's not as if this is a shoo-in that the Kings are going to make the playoffs. So, the Central's still going to be tough. So you better be doing something to take that next step. So if they miss the playoffs, it doesn't necessarily mean it's an automatic, going backwards. It could be seen that way if they do nothing and miss the playoffs. So
that's where I'm going here. I'm keeping the pick. Regarding unless it's a major deal where it's an easy deal. If we're overpaying for a guy, no, but I'm keeping the pick. Reason being is that we outplayed our stock last season. You look at a lot of the metrics with the 5-on-5 and the Corsi and all that kind of stuff like that. We outplayed our stock. We barely won a lot of games by 1 goal or less in the last 5 minutes or whatever. We shouldn't have been where we're at. We played very well. We had a lot of injuries. I get it. But also, if we're trading away players, we should keep our picks. And I think you look back at the 2012 team, the first playoff run was in 2010. They had multiple attempts at the cup, and then they made their move. I just don't think we're there yet. I think we outplayed our stock, and I don't think we're there. And I think that you really need to have a guy here. And there's plenty of players that are going to be in this draft that could help our team. I think I've been the biggest proponent on Twitter that we don't draft for need, but you can draft for the prospect pool need. And there's lots of holes that you can, as far as the types of players that you can draft for, even on BPA all the way. But I think there's a lot of stock there, and we're going to get to a lot of these players and why I think that they can fill needs within an organization. But I also think that the fact that I've been a big stickler for T-Mac and the fact that he doesn't play his prospects that are drafted so high because they need time to develop. They need to have that in-life aspect of playing the game. So if you bring in a Pasta, you bring in whoever, DeBrincat, right, that had been rumored, your top 6 is filled out. Then what is the point of having all these top 4s that you drafted? Like, there is no point because they're not going to get real time on ice to develop and score. And then at that point, are they going to go somewhere else? So people are going to trade for them. So be it. But you have guys in your pool that can be those players. Now, Pasta is lit, and I said this the other podcast, and I do mean it. if you have a legit chance at Pasternak, he's a 40-goal scorer. Most likely, none of our prospects will make it there. Yeah, you make that trade. But for me, the mindset should be, hey, if the offer doesn't blow me away, or if I can't get this guy for a steal, I'm keeping this pick. And that's where I'm going with it. I think a lot of fans want us to get 110 points, 115 points. Like we should exponentially jump where we did last year. And I don't think that's really feasible. I think we're right there. And we're going to be lucky if we make 105 points next season. I think we're going to be right where we are. And people are going to increase. And I think we're going to lose some games. And maybe this is the only caveat, and maybe you guys can comment on this. Our goaltending. Cal has not taken the leap. Mm-hmm. Jonathan Quick is getting older. Do they want to make the push to where they can get JQ in a playoff atmosphere to where he can come up big sooner than the organization is ready? And I'll leave that up for you guys.
That's what kind of Russ and I were talking. I think, like, I thought it was a year early, the talk of, we should be looking to make playoffs this year. I get it from an organization. You want to put that out there to the media and the fans and get the optimism and all that stuff. But I really felt like Byfield hasn't even played. Kaliev hasn't played. Like, I think we're going to need those guys. The Kings are going to need those guys to be a key part of that next team. I think this is another important year for development. And in fairness, it was for guys like Kaliev and for Kupari. So I think that I think the Kings made to me, by them saying that last year, and obviously the comments that Kopitar and Doughty made last offseason before all the offseason moves, like they obviously, as they should, they want another kick. They want another shot at a cup. So if you want to do that while these guys are still important players on your team, these moves have to happen now.
Yeah, but Kopitar and Doughty aren't the organization. If you're Rob Blake, your job
listen to him though. They sure listen to him.
Your job extends past this season. So, are you really worried about the twilight years of two guys that made the cup? Or are you worried about the longevity of this draft class that you've culminated?
I think they certainly listened to those two guys though at what they said last year, and I think by making the moves they made for Arvidsson and for Deneau and bringing in a guy like Edler, like they listened, and I think they must value what they say. And again, if you're sitting there with Anze Kopitar, your number one center, Drew Doughty's your number one D. So if you're not going to try to win with these guys, then I guess what are you doing? I think the decision is they need to go do it now while these guys are still 1C and 1D.
And it's not even about listening to them. It's just that Kopitar and Doughty are still the best players on the team.
Right.
So for the next 2 years or 2, 3, 4 years, however long you have them, you have to build around them and keep them around and try to win with them. So, yeah, it's kind of a little too early. Like we just talked about, Joe, for them that they made the playoffs, and now there's going to be those expectations for them to meet. But, I mean, you look at the team that they're going to be bringing back, there's not really anything that they're losing in terms of impactful players. They're only going to be gaining players. You look at Drew Doughty, Sean Walker, there's going to be full years of them, and then another year of development from Byfield, Kaliev, and then whoever else comes in. So that's why you look at it and you're like, okay, well, this team did make the playoffs, granted with the division the way it was. If you make an upgrade here or there, you have a good chance to make the playoffs again and then make another jump, I guess, in the standings. But the thing is that, like I just mentioned, the Pacific Division around them is going to get a lot better. So you look at what Vegas is going to do. Who knows what's going to happen with Calgary, if they're going to lose Gaudreau or who's going to stay. Edmonton's obviously going to be there. Anaheim's kind of a wild card. Who knows what they would have, what goes on there. So, yeah, if the Kings stand pat and don't make the playoffs, I think most people are going to look to that as a disappointment. So
that would be a disappointment.
Yeah, and then so I think you have to make improvements. And whether it means trading your first-round pick for an impactful player, I think there's a good argument for that.
I think if they don't do anything, and it's the fact that their prospects didn't perform enough to make an improvement, that's not a disappointment. That's just you're. Well, I guess it is a disappointment, but it's not like you didn't try, because you tried. Right, second overall pick, Byfield. We talked about it last week. I think needs to have over 40 points. You have Kaliev that needs to make that jump. You have Kupari and Velarde that need to make those jumps. So they're not making moves. They're just
Well,
allowing they're allowing those guys to play.
Yes, but they made the decision last year that they are going to go a little bit more veteran, right? With they had guys like Hughes getting a lot of ice time still last year. So if you saw Kopitar say at his I think it was Kopitar, where he was asked the question, who's left wing one next year, and he kind of laughed. It's been a question for Kopitar for years. So there's a hole. Whether we look at that and say like, we could fill that internally. There's a hole there still in the top 6, and there's a hole in the top.
But all that talk is like Colorado, right? They've been way better than we have, and they've been consistently there. We're just breaking that playoff barrier. And for me, I think like trying to go full tilt and trying to win a Stanley Cup this year by like filling out our roster, like where's our prospects going to play then?
Well, but
like, if you drafted them to be the future, if you're not going to give Byfield 15, 18 minutes a night, then what are you doing? If you're not going to give Kaliev 15 to 18 minutes a night, then what are you doing? Turcotte, if he's healthy, he should play too. So like, where is all that stuff coming in if you're just going to trade those players away? And now, am I going to be upset that they go get a Pasternak or a DeBrincat or whoever? No, I'm not, because they're trying to win games. I get that. But for me, this is, would you do this as the GM? And for me, I would let your youth play. And the Kings, from the Athletic article, are top 3 in the league at developing players for the most games played in the NHL. They should just let their strength and development staff do their work and see what these guys can do. I get that fans want a Stanley Cup tomorrow. I understand that. But for me, as a GM, I'd rather do that.
My argument to the point that you just made, though, is yes, you're right. With the forwards, they're loaded with forwards. They've got all these forward prospects. They don't have a lefty prospect. That's why Jacob Chychrun is the move. And you fill out your forward depth.
Kirsanov is drinking vodka in Russia. He's ready to come over and smash some skulls. So
until he does.
2 years. He's got 2 years left on his deal over there.
Yeah, they need
Russell,
LB2.
don't be a buzzkill. Don't be a buzzkill.
They need somebody between Mikey Anderson and Jacob. What I'm saying is Jacob Moverari, maybe Toby Bjornford or whatever. And what I don't want to see is
don't take your jersey off there. You got the Moverari jersey in the background.
I want that to be an impactful player, because I think they do have the forwards that can spot in and fill out the rest of that top 6. Now, whether or not they're given that opportunity, TBD. But I do think the forwards are there and the depth of forward prospects are there. We are missing left shot D.
Okay. Well, a lot of fans in here in the chat. So let's thank you guys for your comments. We'll get to a couple of them right now. Hopefully coming in here and saying, let's take a moment to appreciate how lucky we are that we have a competent GM like Blake who is calm and collected. And we know that he won't waste our first round pick. Should he include it in the trade? We've been talking that for a little bit. Can't trade away our pick for a bottom 6 player or a depth player. Obviously, Richard, could you be any more obvious with that comment here? And I think that a lot of these guys, like here, say we need to score. Power play won't be improved with just Chychrun. I disagree with that, and we've talked about in the last episodes. Go back and watch those things. Going to the next topic here, dream picks. Now, every draft has a guy. Last year was Jesper Wallstedt. He was my home run pick for the Kings at 8. I love Brandt Clark. Don't get me wrong, but I wanted that goalie. And the reason being is that our prospect pool was decimated. He was routinely viewed as a top 10 pick, and they didn't pick him. And they now have come out and said that they were trying to get back in the first round when he went into the teens to get him. So they valued him pretty high. Mm-hmm. So guys that fall, who do you guys think could fall? Excuse me, got the air going through here. Who do you think could fall? And then why do you guys want that guy? Why do you guys want that guy on your team? We'll start with Russell on this one.
Yeah, the player that I'm looking at that's probably most likely getting a drafted in the top 10 is Kevin Korchinski. I mean, you look at we just talked about a need on the left side, or I guess if you talk about the most pressing need that the Kings have right now, it's the left side of the defense. Fully loaded up forward, we can talk about all the Santa's list of right shot defensemen that the Kings have. So in terms of looking at what the Kings need, it's a left shot D-man. And I think one of the best left shot D-men in the draft is Korchinski. Canadian born defenseman. He stands 6'2". He plays great in the WHL, and he had 61 assists in 67 games. So, I mean, if you're looking for more of an offensive threat on the left side of the defense, Korchinski would probably be the guy. And if he falls, I think the Kings would be first, would run up to the stage and grab him. Or I would, at least.
Joe, what do you think about Russell's pick with that?
I mean, it's not the one that I'm going with, but I think he makes a lot of great points. I think what's interesting about this 19 pick is there's so many ways that
we're in a soft spot. Like they're literally from the top tier. And if people are not listening to the last podcast, top tier is right at the 12, 13, 14 mark, depending on the scout. So you're only a couple picks away. The fall is not that far.
Right. And you could see, and depending on what lists you look at, there's guys that are ranked in the top 10 in some lists that are in the 20s in somebody else's list. Like it really does seem like there's this really kind of fluidity to these players. And I think it could be really interesting to see how the draft goes. So, I mean, for me, my dream pick, what I'm hoping for, so the player that's going to fall, that I think is going to fall, it just depends on, again, what list you look at. I've seen him picked as high as 7, and I've seen him picked as low as in the 20s. So is he a faller? I don't know. Depends on which list you look at. But I am really intrigued by Marco Casper, the Austrian player who's playing in the SHL. I love the player playing at a young age in a professional league over in Sweden. I think it's a very difficult league. It's a highly regarded league. He holds himself well physically. He's a really smart player, good high hockey IQ. He's good in tight spaces. And I just think you get a player like that that's really well-rounded. Like, I don't know that he's a star. I don't know that he's an elite scorer, but I envision a player who is just a well-rounded top 6, maybe a solid second line player in the NHL as all comes together, that he's used to playing against men at the professional level. So if there's somebody that falls, I would be very excited if Marco Casper is available at 19. Yeah,
I like Casper. I think his compete level, the way he's so strong on the puck, and the determination has just been fantastic with him. Mm-hmm. You see that in that area. You know he's going to make it to the league. Like, that kind of level of determination is going to be there. And I like that pick and I like your pick as well, Russell. I'm going to go a little differently.
Real quick, sorry, Landon. I like what you just said, actually, about how he's going to make it to the league. There's something to be said, I think, about the floor of a player, too. Mm-hmm. Like, the ceiling for Marco Casper, I don't know how high it is. Like, I don't know that he's going to be a 90-point player. But he could be a legitimately solid, well-rounded, two-way, all-around player that can help out in any facet of the game. A quick aside, I feel like I'm sort of describing Alex Turcotte in a way, very well-rounded, but he may not be a star. Big difference between not getting a star at 5 versus 19, but I won't go there. But I like what you said, though, that I think Casper has an extremely legitimate shot at being an NHL player, which is why, again, in some of these
will make it there.
Right.
In my opinion, he will make it there based on whatever's saying. Like, he has the determination, that skill level. Like, he went from Austria to Sweden to give himself a better chance. He played on multiple levels of teams and played wing and center to show diversity. And so within the position, I just think that he has so many skills, and he's a 200-foot player to where he could make it in the bottom 6 and then move his way up easily.
Yep.
I think that's a great pick.
Yeah, a lot of people see the Ducks picking him.
Do you think he's a faller? Like, I had him as somebody that's falling.
Do. I don't think he's a faller, as in the fact that, like, he has problems with his game, but the range of his ranking within a lot of people, I think he could fall to 19 for sure. Yeah. So I'm gonna go here. I mean, if people have been following me on Twitter and the draft content that I've been putting out, I'm going Russians the whole way. I'm drinking vodka all day today. And I'm going Danila Yurov with Russia. And the reason being is that
we're going Russian.
I'm always going Russian here this draft. So I think the fact that he's ranked within the top 10 within almost everybody, maybe top 12 with some people. The only reason that people are nervous is the fact of the Russian climate. And I think that to draft a player who is already contracted in Russia that isn't going to come over right away, who doesn't expect it to come over right away, hey, take a chance on the world climate at that point for me, right? Because the Kings have the top 1 or 2 prospect pool in the league. Take a chance on a guy. I think this guy could definitely fall. And what I like about him, he's got dangles for days, sweet hands. He's always on the nose for scoring, and he's playing in a league in the KHL. It's a top league. And if now you're like, oh, well, hey, we haven't had a nose for Russians, Kovalchuk, that was a whiff, all that kind of stuff. Who cares? Like, if you're afraid to draft a Russian because you have past failures, get out of this league. And I understand that the KHL, you look at it, 21 games, no points. Well, he was averaging like 3 minutes a night. Like, they weren't playing him at all. Like, he was barely getting on the ice. But if you look at the league that he was playing first-line minutes in the MHL, which is similar to the AHL for American hockey players, 36 points in 23 games, 13 goals, 23 assists. This guy was dynamic. And I think that the Kings have the prospect pool to wait on him. They have the team to wait on him and say, hey, 2025, 2026, after your contract's over, come on over. Like, our team could insert you directly into the top 6. And I think he'll be dynamic as a player. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think it's just the biggest question with a lot of these Russian players is exactly what you mentioned, the climate with what's going on with their transfer agreements. So that'll be a big question mark. I don't even think the Russian team is even playing in the upcoming World Juniors. So a lot of scouts won't be able to even see them, and that's a big event for the scouts to see those players. But, I mean, the KHL and the MHL, those are really good leagues for players to get developed, and we've seen those Russian players kind of slip under the radar, and I'm sure we'll see that happen even more so this draft.
Yeah, I'm not surprised just knowing the conversations that we've had, Randon, and I know you're big onto those guys, and I kind of like, and I'm probably going to bring one up a little bit later when we do this, but I kind of like your mindset of, if there's a team that can take a risk on a guy, it's probably the Kings, with the prospect pool as deep as it is, and risk being either, risk reward in terms of the player ability, but also the ability to wait on the player, wait a couple of years. And I think there's validity to that.
Yeah, I think he's just a good player. Like, he's a dynamic playmaker that doesn't play east to west. He plays north and south. He gets to the goalie. He baffles defenses. He makes super smart plays. And, like, even though he's not like a bulky player or whatever, his lower body strength is a super part of his game, where he beats defenders with his strength a little bit inside. And you see a lot of these guys that are good at skating and good at playmaking that don't go inside of the dirty areas. He's not afraid to do that. He plays close to the net. His subtly physical game, he wins puck battles. He has high-end plays. And I think that the only real concern is his visa. And if you're the Kings, you take that chance 100% of the time, because you have the prospect pool to wait. And you could literally get a top 10, top 5 player on many people's drafts based on pure talent at 19.
Absolutely.
So let's go to the next one here, which will be our sponsor in DraftKings. Everybody knows DraftKings. Hockey fans, the pursuit of the Stanley Cup has already happened. Congratulations for Colorado. But DraftKings Sportsbook does many other sports, and here in the NHL, they're the official sports betting partner of the NHL, and Unbelievable Offer has the most exciting playoffs in sports. New customers can bet $5 on any team to win and bet $100 in free bets, no matter what, win or lose. Looking to turn a small bet into a big payday? DraftKings has the same game parlays that you can do just that. Create your own parlay by combining multiple bets, like which team will win, how many goals will be scored, and more. It's just your shot at even a bigger payout. DraftKings is safe, secure, reliable. Best of all, you can deposit and withdraw whenever you want. Download DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code THPN. Bet $5 on any NHL team to win or any future team to win and get $100 in free bets no matter what. Use code THPN at DraftKings Sportsbook, the official sports betting partner of the NHL. Minimum age or eligibility restrictions apply. See show notes for details in our live stream. All right. So we're going gems. Everybody likes gems here. You got Brock Faber, Kaliev, Francisco Pinelli. You got that pizza pie here in the second round. Where are we going here, fellas? Hey, Joe, you're already laughing. You seem giddy to unleash your pick here. Let's go for it, brother.
I am, because I don't, and I think it's going to, and I don't do this intentionally. I think it's going to piss a lot of people off. I'm in on Lane Hudson, guys. I don't care that he's small. I think he's extremely talented. I think he just won the EJ McGuire, the Central Scouting Award. He's one of the, it's as good a defenseman as there is potentially in the draft. Despite his size, but because of his size, he is probably going to fall, and probably to the second round. And I wouldn't be opposed if he's still sitting there in the 40s. For the Kings to move up from that 50 pick to try to grab him. I love him. I love his talent. I love everything about him. I know he's not a big kid right now, but I just think he is a top 20, top 15 for talent I think from a defenseman, and he's going to fall because of his size. So give me that all day.
So you took my guy here, and so we'll piggyback on this.
All right.
Yeah, we'll piggyback. 5'8", 159, soaking wet. And
I'm a little surprised, Brandon. I didn't think that you would go this route with him.
So he's my second round gem. And the reason being is that a doctor said that his bone age is less than his actual age. So his brother grew 2 inches after 18. If he grew 2 inches, if Lane was 5'10", Chris Peters formerly of ESPN said he'd be a top 5 pick. Now, who used to be a top 5 pick as a left-out shot D from the National Development Program? That would be Luke Hughes, right? Luke Hughes didn't have over a point per game played at the National Development Program. Lane Hudson did. He's a dynamic playmaker. He has the skating. He has the skills. He has the vision. The only thing that's lacking is size. And even in his own age group where he is smaller, he is closing gaps. He's doing everything he can to play phenomenal defense. His stick, he has one of the best sticks in the game. And I am not a fanatic with film watching, because I didn't play that game at a high level, but just reaching out for other scouts that we've talked to already about his game and talking to him about the podcast. I just love it. He has everything you need, but everybody's scared away from his height. There's a chance he grows 2 inches in college. There's a chance that he gets bigger. And I understand that's a chance, but my whole thing is this. I'm lottery kings this year. Let's take the chance on everybody, because right now we have the best or second best prospect pool. If we're not the best team on the rise, we're one of the top 2. Let's hit some home runs. Let's go for top guys that can really do it. Let's go for like Lane Hudson. If he was Brant Clark's size, he'd be Brant Clark this season. And I'm saying this truthfully, is he's a guy who's a weapon, and he will fall. And the Kings aren't afraid to move up. They made trades in every single pick last season. They will trade up to get this guy if he falls in the second round. Joe, phenomenal pick.
And I think like if they can get a guy like a well-rounded high floor guy with that 19 pick, assuming they keep it, boy, it's even more likely, at least in my opinion, that they can go and try to take a run and hit a home run with Lane Hudson. And I'm with you. Like, you look at the production that he's putting, he's doing things that defensemen, highly rated defensemen at the same age we're not doing. Like, we're talking, he's outproducing like Quinn Hughes, Luke Hughes, he's Cam York's another one, Adam Fox is another one. Like, he is. Let's
go for this right here. So in the draft year, Luke Hughes, 38 games, 34 points. Let's go Lane Hudson here, coming over if elite prospects will. Okay, so 63 points in 60 games. So you're talking about a guy who just outproducing other players. Now, he's not going to be 6'2". He'll never be 6'2", and that's why Luke Hughes got drafted in the top 5, dynamic playmaker. But Lane Hudson could be a second-round gem because you take the chance on he's positive. The only thing that's negative is his height, which he can't control. You take that risk, in my opinion. Russell, you've been silent here. We've been going back and forth, just diving in. You probably could eat a sandwich and come back, but what is your thoughts on Lane Hudson, and where will you go with this pick?
It's actually pretty funny that you guys picked Lane Hudson, 5'8". I'm going the entirely opposite side of the spectrum here with Maverick Lamoureux, standing at 6'7", 200 pounds, left shot defenseman. I mean, this guy was a scouting combine beast. He finished in the top 10 in almost every major physical trait in the scouting combine, and agility trait too for a guy his size. That's pretty big. And the biggest, I guess, knock on him has been his agility, and that's probably acceptable for given how tall he is. But I mean, for being 6'7", he's able to skate really well. And I'm not saying he's Quentin Byfield on the ice where he can skate as quick as Byfield can, but I mean, for a player to be 6'7", you're talking about a really good wingspan to use that stick smart to break up the puck from those in the neutral zone and get really smooth, crisp passes outside of his own D zone. So if you look at what the Kings have right now defensively, there's a lot of smaller guys that are more offensively talented. There's not really that big defensive type presence that the Kings have. I mean, Kirill Kirsanov is kind of that kind of mold, but I mean, we haven't really seen him yet. He's still in the KHL. He's going to be there for a couple more years. But for Lambert, I mean, he just finished a year in the QMJHL. Jordan Spence. Usually defensemen aren't really that sought after in the QMJHL. It's seen as more of an offensive type league. Mm-hmm. But look what Jordan Spence just did. He won top defenseman in the league just 2 years ago in the QMJHL, and he was able to make the jump into the NHL in his first pro season. So in the second round, I've seen Lambert go around where the Kings are taking, even a little bit higher. But, I mean, I was just really impressed with what I saw in the scouting combine, and I think for a guy his size, that's something the Kings need. But I'm also with you, Randon, where this is a draft where the Kings should go for those home run type picks. And there's another guy that I'm looking forward toward more later in maybe the fourth or fifth round. That's actually probably one of my favorite players in this draft that I'll get to when we get to our next part of here.
No, this is the time.
Second round. Let's just do it now. Yeah,
let's do it now. So who's your guy?
So we talked about what's the most pressing need that the Kings have right now? Scoring, obviously. I mean, you look at what Martin Chromiak did in the OHL. He's probably going to be one of the. He's going up there in terms of being one of the more highly sought, or I guess a lot of fans are excited about what Chromiak could do. He looked great for Kingston playing alongside Shane Wright. But there's a player that he played with that scored more points than him, and it was third overall in the OHL in scoring, and that's Lucas Edmonds. So he's actually going to be an overager coming into this draft. He was actually passed on a couple times now. I believe this is his third time. And the reason being is that he was playing over in Europe, in junior leagues over in Europe, and didn't really get a lot of, I guess, scouting, especially with what went on in COVID. But Lucas Edmonds, he's a goal scorer. This is what this guy does. I believe he finished with over 113 points in the OHL. I mean, a lot of knock on Arthur Kaliev's game was his skating ability, and that's kind of why he fell to the second round, but he was a tremendous goal scorer. With Edmonds, if you're able to get a 21-year-old that's able to put up that type of scoring, yeah, you can say what you will. Maybe the defensive game is lacking a little bit, but like we just talked about, Randon, this is the year for the Kings to make that home run pick, to take that chance on a player that has that high upside and just kind of get away from that low kind of safe floor that they kind of picked in the past. So go for the home runs. I'm looking for Edmonds maybe in the middle round, say maybe fourth, fifth round pick.
You're coming in there hot because I like it, and Unetti will agree with you. He said anybody in the late rounds, you pick one elite trait and you hope they can capitalize on that to win. And Edmonds comes in there with a lot of scoring. He played with top line mates, so he knows how to facilitate guys that are better than him. And there's something to be said of that, who's a facilitator, right? Snugard is a guy that maybe one of us will pick with our 19th pick, but he played on the line with Logan Cooley, and he can score, but he was relied upon with puck retrieval for the United States Development Program. So there's something to be a role player, like an IXL follow, that can gel a line together. And in the fifth round, that's a guy that you want to see. So, hey, everybody in the comments, thank you guys for being in the comments. We will get to a lot of your players. That's why I haven't been putting your comments up, because we're going to get there. And so like, subscribe, join us out. Also, this is where we're going to be debuting this. We're also going to throw it on Twitter. We're doing a live draft show, guys. We're going to be there live on YouTube, just talking about the draft. Join us in. We might even throw some fans in the chat. We're definitely going to have more hockey royalty guys coming in. So please join us in here for the live chat for the draft. We love you guys. Thank you guys for supporting us. Hey, it's time for the 19th pick now. We all got our top 3. We've been doing the scouting. We're ready to go. Who wants to kick us off for the top 3 here? Their third pick here. Let's go, Joe, because Russell just wasted his breath with the guy that he wants in the 5th round. So let's go, Joe.
So I talked about the guy earlier that was going to fall, or that I hope falls, in Marco Casper, and I talked about him having a decently high floor, hockey IQ, well-rounded player. I sort of put this guy in a similar vein in that I think he's going to be an NHL player. I think he's at a high floor, assuming he can. And Russ mentioned earlier about the skating with some guys, and it's Rutger Mcgraw. I think that he's got all the tools in the shed. His skating is a little bit of a question by most scouts. So I think that's the one thing that, like, if he can figure that out. But I think, as we've seen, that can be something that, like, it hasn't held Arthur Kaliev back really. And I think he's really good in the offensive zone. He's he's strong in the defensive zone as well. He'll block shots. I look at him as a well-rounded player. So again, I'm actually kind of going less of a home run here, similar to Casper, more with a high floor that I think is just a well-rounded player in Rutger Mcgraw. But he does have he's at a pretty high ceiling too. I think this kid can be a very productive player. He can be a top 6 winger. So I do think there's a lot of talent here too, but I think there's a decent floor with him.
Yeah, I'm going to jump in there because he was my 3rd as well. So Rutger Mcgraw, right wing out of the National Development Program. You know what I like about him? And I'm not going to compare him to Hall of Fame, but I am going to compare him to Hall of Fame Dustin Brown, because he can hit. He's nasty. He goes to the dirty areas. He's got a heavy shot. He's got a filthy shot. And like, I know Dustin Brown was not a bad skater, but the skating is an aspect that you can change with the development program. And I keep saying this, Kings top 3 in developing players to be NHL players. They have a good development program, and they spend a lot of money and energy into that. Skating is fixable, but he has got a heavy shot. He's got competitive drive. He was the captain on his team. And so the high character guys, the Kings have been drafting those guys. And I think that he can literally come in and give some nastiness to this forward group. All this forward group is right now, outside of Alex Turcotte, is finesse, which is great. Finesse, shots, skills. McGroarty can come with some nastiness, and an awesome last name, because who doesn't want McGroarty on their jersey here?
What I'd say too, Randon, with the skating, like, I think two things. One, I'd rather have a hockey brain, somebody that thinks at a high level and can keep up at the NHL level with his brain than skating. 2, the skating is a problem, like, only if you make it a problem. What I mean by that is, I look at a guy like Jacob Moverari. Like, there's a lot of questions about his skating as a defenseman.
He was deemed the worst skater in his draft.
But
the worst, period.
You know what? He knows that. So you don't see Jacob Moverari trying to wheel the net and do things that are out of his. He plays within his game, and he plays to his strengths. You can be a below average skater and still be really effective if you just play to your strengths, and you're not, Rutger Mcgraw. So maybe he's not going to wheel the puck in his own zone and go end to end and walk through 6 guys. Like, maybe that's just not what he's going to do. That's okay, right? It's just, if you know that, and you know your strengths, you know what you need to work on, you know your weaknesses, you can get around the ice perfectly fine if you have a hockey brain, which I believe that he does.
So Rutger Mcgraw here on the national team development team.
We're 2 for 2, Brandon. We did not do that on purpose.
No, we're not. According to Chris Peters from the Daily Faceoff, quote, McGroarty has got size. He's got the work ethic, the character, goal scoring ability to be a long-term impact player. The main drawback is his foot speed, which is definitely a concern among certain NHL sources. But it's hard to ignore the impact he makes on the game by game basis, whether it's his physicality or his goal scoring. He's not towering by his size, but he wins most of his battles in the hard areas of the ice. While he has an elite shot and can score from distance or off a one-timer, his net front play is where he makes his money in the NHL. He has good enough skill to finish plays on a regularity, and his hockey sense makes up for every concern of his foot speed. And this is where I think the prospect pool is missing. Like we have very few guys that can just dominate in the crease and isn't afraid to go there. You look at guys like Kupari, spend his time on the outside. You have guys like Byfield who made his play on the outside, can come in, and a lot of the second and third round guys are just snipers. I think McGrady could fill in this prospect pool with some depth. What do you think, Russell?
Well, I think we all have ESPN or something because I picked McGrady as my third pick too.
Oh, all right.
Peek behind the curtain. It's funny. You peek behind the curtain for those. Like we talked before the show. Like, should we like give away our picks just as a? And we said no. It's all going to be a surprise. And sure,
right?
We're picking the same.
Yeah, and this is a great reason. And and like you guys all just mentioned, and there's probably a reason why we all picked him is because this is a player that the Kings don't really have right now. I mean, I'm trying to think of the last time that they drafted a really mean type player this high in the draft. I mean, maybe Kyle Clifford. I know Sammy Helenius was a second rounder last year too, but I mean, he's got a little bit of a mean streak. But with McGrady, he's a leader. I mean, he was a captain of the USA under 18 team, and he had 8 goals in 6 games, and he had 27 penalty minutes. I mean, this is a guy who's gonna lead on and off the ice. And for a team that just lost a leader in Dustin Brown, to draft a player like McGrady, I think that fills a real big need. And there's a couple cool tidbits from McGrady. He would be the second player drafted out of Nebraska. Jake Gensel, I think, is the other one. And then he had more goals this year than Shane Wright and Logan Cooley, albeit in a different league. But if he just doesn't have that mean streak, he can also score. And for a player like Randon just mentioned, all that scouting report on him, he's a net front presence kind of guy. And that's exactly what the Kings need going forward. So we can add all that together. This feels like a pick that we think would be great, but also a pick that the Kings would make. He kind of fills all those traits that the Kings would like.
And maybe this isn't as important for the Kings because of where their prospect pool is, but I actually think he could be relatively quick to the NHL. Like, I don't know that he's a guy that needs a ton of seasoning for what he brings. I could be way off on that. We'll see. But I wouldn't be surprised if he could be an NHL player, maybe.
He's going to college. So the fact that he can be year by year and it's not a contract thing could be good for him.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So Richard's pumped about the live chat. He'll be in here. That's awesome. Don't foreshadow us there, buddy. And Marcus Lawrence, why are you coming in here with the F to Brinket, man? Positive goal scoring, keep positive minds going forward. Number 2, Russell, let's go straight into your number 2.
We've talked about how good the draft prospect pool is right now. So I'm going home runs with my next 2 picks. And this next guy, he's gotten so much scrutiny over. I mean, I think he was ranked in the top 5 just at the beginning of the year, and he's kind of dropped down a couple, but I'm going Brad Lambert. And the reason I pick him as my second best or my second favorite pick for the Kings at 19 is when I watched him in that World Juniors when he was 16 years old, he did not look out of place. And for a 16-year-old to be playing in that high and that important of a competition, being the youngest on the team, if not one of the youngest in the entire tournament, I mean, that's a player. When I see that happen at that young of an age, I see that potential. So when I say home runs, there's been a lot of scrutiny in terms of whether he's been consistent. He's been playing in the pro leagues in Liga. So he's playing as a young guy around adults. So now that he's got this youthful potential, or this under him already in these pro leagues, I think that only would help his development. So there's been a lot of debate over whether he'll be. I mean, some people have him as high as in the top 10s, but I've seen it mostly around 15 to 20. So if Lambert is there at 19, I think that's a player that the Kings should definitely take a look at. And another thing to remember with him is that he doesn't have a contract with any team next year. So there's a chance he could possibly even make the jump into the NHL next season. A lot of people don't see that happening, but it's on the table. So Lambert would be my choice, or is my choice as second favorite.
Where you going there? Craig Button has as low as in the 40s, 46. But Scott Wheeler, guest of the pod, just came out with a nice article where he interviewed Lambert and quote from Wheeler, "It's harder when people in the public eye don't always know what everything is going on. Not everyone knows what you're injured or that you were injured at the World Junior Showcase, or that you started the season with an injury and missed camp, and then an illness on top of that as part of the preseason. Lambert responds, yeah, it's impossible for people to know what actually is going on behind the scenes, but that is fine. I thought even though I didn't produce the way I wanted to this year, I got a lot out of the season, and I'm still totally confident that going forward I can produce. I think I've shown what I can produce at my own age group in the World Juniors and the under 20s, and I think I can produce at every stage of my life throughout the years, and I've been an opportunity to use my skill, speed, and creativity. I know I can produce. I'm very confident in that. It goes on there, and I think that Lambert is tired of this stuff. Like, he's been in the public eye. He's produced at every single level, and yeah, he didn't make that jump next year. Everybody thought he was going to be there with Shane Wright as 1 and 2. Mm-hmm. I get that. He fell back. He's got injuries. He came into camp injured and illness, and we all believe Byfield can make the jump, right? So why can't we believe that Lambert can make the jump? And I think that a lot of people are sleeping on him. And the interview goes on to say that he's super competitive with all his family. He's super competitive with everybody else. He believes that if it's not winning, it's losing. Like, that kind of guy he's not going to take this season lightly. And I think Russell. Go ahead. Sorry.
I was just say another guest that you had on, Randy, you talked to Cory Bronman. He has him rated as the best skater in the draft as well.
So does Chris Peters. So, and he said, hey, or Chris Peters said, hey, I rated him the best skater in the draft. And Wheeler's like, hey, so what are you doing this offseason? He's in Canada working with a pro developmental program that Connor McDavid has worked at and all this kind of stuff. And he said, this is the first offseason where I've lifted weights. I've actively worked on my skating. So all what we've seen is just pure him. And who does that remind you of? Drew Doughty, right? He just relied on all his skill from a young age. And Lambert's coming on quick that he needs to work out. He's lifting hard. He's going to development camps with pro athletes. I think he's going to be there. I think a lot of people are sleeping on him. And he's my second because of the fact that there's such a wide level of mental things with him as far as why didn't he produce and why didn't he grow? He had the opportunity, and my guy who's number 1 didn't have the opportunity. But I think that he's a slam dunk. Like, why not go for the home run?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, a lot of great points there. I think he's an active player.
So, Joe, I know we hogged up a lot of ice time, so to speak. Who's your number 2?
That's okay. My number 2 is out of the U.S. development program, and that's Isaac Howard. Whenever you see something that one of the best X in the draft, in his example, he's one of the best goal scorers in the draft, but that's followed by a but he's small or he's not a great skater. I think guys like Cole Caulfield, I think guys like Arthur Kaliev, give me those guys. If guys are going to fall because of narrative or because of he's a little undersized or his skating is questionable, I want that player, especially when the Kings have a prospect pool as deep as they are. I want to take a shot on this guy because if it clicks a little bit or if the size doesn't become a big factor, because you know what? I don't know. The size these days is not quite what it used to be. So the fact that he's 5'10", this is a goal scorer. This is an offensive producer. He's one of the best offensive production players in the draft. I think he's extremely talented. I think he's going to Minnesota Duluth, if I'm not mistaken. Yes. So, see how he does there as he goes into college. But I'm a big fan of this player, Isaac Howard.
So we talked about this in the interview with Scott Wheeler, and he picked him as the guy that if he fell out of his top 12, he has Isaac Howard as I think 12th in his rankings. To follow the Kings, it was a home run pick, and for all those reasons. So I like that pick. What you're talking about, Joe?
Yeah, the way when you look at, and again, listen, I'm not a pro scout or draft expert, but when you're reading all these guys that are, and they say this is one of the best goal scorers in the draft, one of the best goal scorers in the draft, could fall because of his size. Give me him. I want that guy. I want the guy with the elite talent to come on my team if I can get it.
So Richard comes in here. Does size matter at all? Like it did in past matter for the Kings, and it doesn't for me. And the reason being is this: you're drafting guys who can play NHL games, who can make impacts in the first round. If they're 5'8", 5'9", to 6'5", it doesn't matter because look what the Lightning did. They took Pat Maroon. Like, he's a bottom 6 player. You can find guys with size, guys with grit in free agency. You guys cannot find top end goal scorers or finesse guys very often in free agency. I know we have Philip Forsberg and Pasternak and coming up this time, but it doesn't happen very often. And so if you can nurture those guys from the draft, it's much more of an impact. What do you think about Isaac Howard there for the pick there, his second?
I think it's a good pick. I was looking at Howard a lot too. I think I really like his puck skills. I think he's got one of the best or some of the best hands in the draft. So in terms of creativity, he's probably one of the best players in the draft at that. And that's something that the Kings desperately need. And so if you're looking for a player who's going to help on the power play for a team in the NHL, I think Howard would be a great pick.
Him or Jagger Furcus were right there with me, and those type of players were right there with me for two.
If we could all have guys that are Anze Kopitar, 6'4", 220, and dominate both ends of the ice, yeah, that's obviously best case scenario. But
yeah, we want Ovechkin who can slap one-timers and then score a goal in the Russian professional soccer league
that was
at 40-plus years old with a beer belly. Yes.
But guys, Alex DeBrincat is what? Is he 5'8"?
Mm-hmm.
And
with stilts,
scored 40 goals. So it can be done. And give me that player. If a guy that is capable of scoring that many points, being that productive, and just because he's 5'10" or whatever Howard is, 5'9", he's gonna fall. Give me him.
Yeah, the Kings have some tall, I guess, bigger guys coming in the wings. I mean, you look at Hellenius, Andre Lee. I mean, there's Quentin Byfield, obviously. I mean, there's players that are. There's not like there's no size in the prospect pool. There's size there, but if you're just looking for like I've mentioned in my first couple picks, I'm going for more for I guess of a home run type aspect for especially with what the Kings have right now at 19.
So I think we've all got the top two. We're going for the last one here. So everybody in the chat, I see you guys. Who do you guys think they should take with the first? Right now, I'm going with my man. I've been touting the phone for him. Ivan Miroshnichenko is my number one guy, and I think, and this is a no-brainer for me. And it's a total home run pick. I get it. Cancer, Russian, whatever. I don't give an F because he was right there with the second or the contention for the first overall pick in next year's draft, Michkov, in points. In the World Junior Championships, he was right there, and he was getting less minutes, creating just as much havoc. He's a big player. So Ivan, right now, you're looking at is 6'1", 185. He was dominating in every single facet of his league, and then he got cancer. He's tried over 4 times to come to the Canadian Hockey League, so it's not like he doesn't want to come to the States. This is not a issue of will he or won't he come. He's trying to come. But he got cancer. He's already
just to kind of he got Hodgkin's lymphoma. Yeah, so he's in remission now. But
he started skating June 3rd. So
yeah,
but a lot of people don't know if it's going to come back or whatever, and that's a risk to take him the top 10. I think he will fall. I think he will be there, and that's my guy all the way. If you can get a guy who was rumored to be in the top 2, top 3, guaranteed in the draft, and then he fell because of disease. Now, I'm sorry for him and Ivan, what he's had to go through, but I'm talking about from a purely up standpoint. He's got 2 years left in his contract with Omsk. So you're looking at, hey, maybe next year is all him getting back from what it is, and he has 1 year in the Russian league to get his skates underneath him. That's plenty of time for that. That's plenty of time for the Kings. If you're talking about a home run hit, let's go crystal ball from now on, right? Kopitar is no longer the player he is. He's maybe 3C. You got Deneau and you got Byfield him and out. And then you come in, Ivan coming in, boxing for that 3C role, maybe pushing Deneau in his older skates, even though I don't think that will ever happen because Deneau is a fighter. But you got a potential 2C that is just waiting there at 19, and that doesn't happen very often. It doesn't happen. You get a top 5 talent falling to 19. You got to take the home run pick. And I don't think there even should be a blink of an eye that he is the pick at 19, in my opinion.
Well, Randon, he's mine as well. Chekhov is mine. It's funny. I almost didn't go with him because I'm like, I know Randon is definitely going with him because you've been in on the Russians. But I very much agree again. Like it echoes what I talked about before with Howard and frankly with Hudson. Like if you have a player that is as among the most talented players in the draft, but they're going to fall because of X, Y, or Z, I want to try to get my hands on that player. And I think this is the draft, and you guys have said it much better than me, that this is the draft where the Kings could really take some home runs and really take a shot at some of these guys that maybe reaches because they're fallers or whatever, because of the depth of their prospect pool. Like this could be a great year to take shots at these guys, at Chekhov, at Hudson, at these guys that are loaded with talent but falling for various reasons. And I'm with you. You have one. He has arguably the best shot in the draft. Does Chekhov. So he's got a quick first step. He's a good skater. Maybe it's stereotypical, but I do think there's questions from scouts about his defensive game. But you know what? If he's going to score at an elite level, I think you don't care as much about that, right? So I'm with you. He is my pick as well, Randon. I think if he is there, and you know what, I do think he's going to be there. I think he's going to fall, and I think the Kings should take him. I think he'll be there. So
you're looking at so in the minor leagues in Russia, he had 16 points in 31 games as in a draft year. Amongst his peers, 12 points in 4 games. That's 3 points per game. He had 9 points in 5 games the year after in the Hlinka. And you look at in Cory Bronman's top players to reach their potential, or to who has the most upside, not to reach the potential, who has the most upside. He talked to scouts at the combine, and Miroshnichenko was top 5, saying Miroshnichenko is top 5 player for me prior to his lymphoma diagnosis. He was rated as that high to his very well-rounded pro toolkit, showing NHL speed, skill, frame, elite shot, and great motor. Obviously, his health is a main concern, and why he won't be drafted in the range that I think he should be. But thankfully, he's making progress in his cancer diagnosis. This is a home run for me. I don't think that the Kings should blink an eye about putting his name down. And Russell, you've been silent over there. If you make it 3 for 3, we're gonna have a draft party up in this busy right here.
Well, I'll premise this by saying we did not come together before we recorded this, but I did pick Miroshnichenko too.
Yeah, so. Dance it up, everybody. Dance it up. All right.
But yeah, I mean, I think we all know the Kings. We all know what the Kings have, and we all know what the Kings really need, and it's really not much. So if you're looking for a player that really has that high upside, Miroshnichenko is it. And it's terrible what he had to go through with lymphoma diagnosis. And it's been good news. Apparently he's in remission, and a lot of people were talking about him not being even able to play at all next year. Now that is actually off the table, and there's a chance that he might actually be able to play. So for the Kings, if you look at all the other players or all the other teams that are kind of surrounding the Kings, I think the Kings, it just makes the most sense because of they're a team that is able to take that home run pick. Mm-hmm. And I think also as us looking at outside in, they haven't really done that. They've always kind of drafted for need. They went for quality over quantity a little bit last draft, which they drafted for players that they really wanted. But we've seen teams take chances on these players that maybe have a lot of explosive impactability, but have a little bit more of weaknesses too in coming out of the draft. We saw that happen with Trevor Zegras. A lot of people were wondering why Zegras fell or Caulfield fell. Like, so it's time for the Kings to forget all about that and just take a player. If Miroshnichenko's there, take a player that has this tremendous upside where, I mean, if it weren't for Matvei Michkov in the U18s, Miroshnichenko would be the player that everyone was talking about. So there are a lot of stuff fighting against him. He's got 2 more years left in the KHL, so we wouldn't see him for a couple more years. And we'll also have to see how he comes back to play. But if you're talking about a player who has top 3 potential, maybe he would probably even be top 2 in this draft if he was fully healthy, that's a player I'm grabbing all day.
And I would say too, don't be too like turned off by some of his production numbers if you look at it in the MHL, because I think it's if it's not in line, it might even be better than those some of the other high end Russian players that have gone in recent years or are soon to go. I look at Vasily Podkolzin over in Vancouver. Like he didn't exactly like the lamp over in the MHL, and he's been an extremely high prospect for the Canucks. So don't.
But Ivan was almost a point per game at 16.
Right, that's what I'm saying. So
at 16, not draft year, previous draft year, he was almost a point per game player.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with this, and I know before, like, it's funny because I've kind of gone both ends of the spectrum here with Hudson and Miroshchenko, but because I also talked about Casper and McGordy, who I deem as a bit more higher floor guys, but that kind of just spells out the wide range of this first pick right at 19, where there's guys that are all over the map that can go with LA.
And I like McGrady in the fact that he seems like an LA Kings type player. Like he seems like a Pacific Division gritty type scorer. But I'm going off of what Rob Blake went last year with the multiple trade ups. They're going for high potential guys. And for me, that screams if the first 2 rounds are Miroshchenko and Lane and Hudson, I'm literally creaming in my jeans. Like that is just phenomenal. Not depth, but potential with those picks. Yeah.
Do you think that this is what they should do this again this year? Trade and go with the quality over quantity again this draft. Do you think that's a route that they should take?
Now, if they know that they have a trade in the wings, then keep the picks. Keep the other picks, right? But if they're not, then yeah, trade up and get the most higher end talent they possibly can. Now, I didn't talk to my co-host here, but I think they'll agree with me. Russell, can you plug the Hockey Royalty email?
Yeah, contact@hockeyroyalty.com.
Contact@hockeyroyalty.com. So if you guys are listening, email contact@hockeyroyalty.com about your first 2 picks. Now, I know this is a wide range and very slim chance, but Hockey Royalty will buy you a jersey of the first round here if you get both picks right. Now, that's a slim chance, but throw your names out there. If Hockey Royalty won't, I will. I'll buy it because that will be legendary. Get your names in there. Contact@hockeyroyalty.com. Let's do that. Let's get some fan giveaways going because I think Hockey Royalty is going to the next stratosphere this year, and we need to do some giveaways for some fans. So I think this draft is going to be great. What do you guys think?
Again, with the ranges this could go, we've talked about guys that could go in the top 10, and as those same guys could go after LA at 19, they could go in the 20s. We've talked about guys with extremely high talent levels that are going to fall, and we know are going to fall for various reasons. It's all over the board, and I think we'll see. We'll be really interested to see, and I'd be curious to know. Obviously, we'll find out, I guess, come draft day what. Who the Kings are targeting and what are some of the players they're looking to do. It's a fun draft. I know usually you have fun, quote unquote, at the draft when your team is picking in that top 3, top 5, top 10, whatever. But it can be just a different type of fun at 19.
Well, yeah, you live in Buffalo, so you're used to that.
It's true.
Oh, Russell, what are you feeling about this draft, man? Are you excited? Are you excited more for the pick to be traded? What's your feelings?
I'm hoping for some trades. This will be the first live draft that we had in quite some time. So let's get the fans excited. Make something happen. I want to hear them booing Gary Bettman, and I want to hear him cheering when he makes a trade announcement. So looking forward to it. Watch party should be fun, guys. So if you're able to make it, we're going to have a lot of fun. A lot of HR guys are going to be in there. Are going to be jumping in and out. I know Ryan Cowley is going to be jumping in there too. So, yeah, we'll be having some fun. It's going to be really informal. If you guys want to ask some questions while we're doing it, go ahead. Yeah. So, but I'm looking forward to the draft. It's always a good time of year when the draft starts because right out the next week after we have free agency. So busy time coming up.
Man, Hockey Royalty couldn't be more in sync. So the Hockey Royalty pick at 19 is Ivan Miroshchenko, and I hope that he comes to the Kings here. Thank you guys for coming on. As always, on the website, hockeyroyalty.com for all those articles. Man, we are pumping them out more than a factor right now. it's phenomenal, all the stuff that's coming out of hockeyroyalty.com. We have podcasts coming out every week. As always, you guys heard last week, Chris Peters. Tomorrow, we got Sixten Funquist coming in from Sweden, talking about Swedish prospects. And then next week, we're going live directly, not from the draft because we don't have that kind of money, but at our own living rooms, talking about that kind of draft, where you guys can come in, ask us questions, and we might even let some fans in if I feel kind of frisky after my sixth beer or not. So that's what we're talking about here. As always, you guys can find, let's throw the banner up there. Let's throw the banner here. HockeyRoyalty.com, at hockey_royalty. Random Commando 24 on Twitter. JW Parino on Twitter, and NHL Russell. Man, guys, been a great episode. Anything you guys want to say before we count off here?
That was a lot of fun. Can't wait for the draft. And again, if for anybody that's on here that's listening, whatever, is unsure or questioning some draft stuff, Ryan Sykes has been pumping out draft articles on a daily basis. Randon has had draft podcasts with Chris Peters, Cory Bronman. I was with him with Scott Wheeler. I'll be with him with Sixten Funquist. So we're trying to get you covered all across the board here when it comes to the draft.
Russell, what do you got to say, my man? We got 1 week left to the draft, and we got 2 weeks left of free agency. What are you feeling?
That's right. Yeah, I mean, I got to echo what Joe just said. Ryan Sykes is just doing an amazing job covering a lot of the draft profiles for Hockey Royalty. I Google some of the players' names, and I see one of his articles. So it's great what he's been doing. And then let's not forget, right after the draft on the 11th is development camp. So I'm planning to be in El Segundo for development camp. So looking forward to everything that goes on around there and hoping to get some interviews with some of the draft prospects.
Nice. So thank you guys for coming in. Thank you guys for all your comments. I know that wasn't as much Q&A as you guys normally get, but please coming in. I know that the draft is going to be fun. We're going to have draft analysis after the draft. We're going to have fun during the draft. Man, Kings hockey is just a great time right now. We have trades. We have draft. Anything is possible in Kings world. As always, go Kings, go.